So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Daniel, for that fantastic introduction. What I want to do over the next half hour is actually to share some of the low points as well as the high points, because I think actually the purpose of this session is for it to educate people about the basics of marketing and ICO. And I'm going to share with you some of the learnings. My expectation is, as a result of that you will save time and save money if you run your own ICO. Can everyone hear me clearly? Yes. Great, thank you. So the first thing is the white paper. Now, a year ago, it was okay to have a white paper that wasn't specifically designed to stimulate people. What's actually happened, and I should say the background is that I met Daniel and Rugi, who are CoinLocker now. I met them when we did the Pillar ICO. I'm really sorry, but there's some people speaking here. I just wondered if you wouldn't mind. Okay, would you like to come up onto the stage? Yeah, if you want to speak, I think it's best one person at a time. It's really distracting for me, so it must be very distracting for others. So, basically, a year ago, you could run an ICO and have great success. And actually, everyone didn't really mind if your white paper was homemade. The content, of course, was important. But now we are light years away from ICOs a year ago, which means that people expect a white paper to be well-designed, and they will pick up an awful lot of information from that. So you really need to invest time and effort into this. I've got a couple of examples here, which are particularly good. An opportunity to show diagrams and keep things very clear. I would say, if anyone wants any of these slides, please feel free, I'll give them to you afterwards. There aren't many words on them, I'll warn you. I have also a checklist that I'll share with anybody who wants it afterwards. But basically, people expect technical information in a white paper, but they also expect it to be interesting to read and compelling. And people aren't necessarily going to read every word, but I can guarantee people will spot what you get wrong. So your white paper needs to be shared widely, reviewed before you design it. Save yourself a fortune by designing it once everybody is completely happy with the content. Because I can honestly say that design companies are making a fortune out of changes that clients are making to the white paper. Website. Now, again, same thing. Websites now have to be really, really good. This is the website for Jinbei. We've worked with Taya Santos, who's absolutely brilliant, who's part of the Pillar community. Key thing is you want calls to action on your website. The other thing is we've heard lots of talk about KYC. So the main thing there is that have your KYC and AML information there up and running a good month before the ICO starts. Why? It's great because you'll get there with a running start. It shows confidence. People really, let's not forget there's an awful lot of emotion around ICOs. We're going through a step change where we've gone from a lot of smaller investors and now the institutions are coming into the ICO scene, which means the professionalism is required within the ICO community. And that professionalism means that people are not going to give you a second chance. There are so many different ICOs out there, typically 50 a month. So there's a lot of competition. And interestingly, it seems to me as though most ICOs start off with one website and then completely change and have another site. That's very typical because they realize how much they need to get there. This is a particularly attractive web page, I believe, because what it does is it shows the listings success that this ICO has achieved. The use of color is beautiful, and just to say that the more appealing the website is, the better. People pick up an awful lot from the website. And again, if you'd like to save yourself cash, money, effort, have your website up and running, have your white paper nailed, and then start speaking to marketing agencies. If you do it the other way around, you will find yourself spending months of effort changing things, and actually a lot of that effort could be wasted. So by all means, speak to partners early, but you don't really want to activate anything until this is sorted out. Now, it's really common sense, but I hope, is it helpful? Yeah? Okay. I'm not going to show this, but this is an explainer video. Exactly right, exactly the same as in the crowdfunding scene. You find that in the ICO world, every successful ICO has an explainer video. Now, yes, you can have use a video for other types of promotion, for introducing the main players within the organization. Yes, we get that. But explainer videos are the best way of engaging and explaining to your target audience what your ICO is about. Not only is it used on your website, you can use it through social media. If your explainer video is incomprehensible, then you will not have a successful ICO. And it sounds obvious, but I have actually watched explainer videos and said to myself, I don't get it. And I've played it over and over again. By the third time, you're just not going to invest. Now, these aren't hugely expensive. The key thing is you define your target audience for the video, and that's crucial too. It's a really good way of you introducing your target audience into the video, and people get it. But it's an area of comfort. Pretty ugly, unattractive design, but hey, Bitcoin Talk Forum is still very, very important in the ICO scene. This is here because I want to talk briefly about bounty campaigns. Whether you like them or loathe them, they actually do have an impact. And one of the ways that's very, very significant, you need to think of your end game. If you want to be trusted, then you really do need to have some decent ratings on the ICO platforms, because that's a shortcut for people seeing if your campaign is going to be a success or not. So how do you get rapid traffic to your Twitter feed? How do you get rapid interaction on Telegram? And how do you get all those people to join? The truth of the matter is that virtually everybody, unless you've got a massive community to start with, virtually every community has to rely on getting success through the bounty campaigns. If you start running Twitter and Telegram without the bounty and then kick in the bounty, you will see a massive difference. Now, interestingly too, that bounty community are also, if you communicate well, they can be your advocates going forward. I think it's very interesting to engage with those people, and a lot of the bounty hunters are very entrepreneurial, they're truly global, and what's interesting is that there's a little bit of fatigue out there. For those who are joining bounties where they only get paid if it's a success, some of them have had their fingers burnt. So it's not a foregone conclusion that if you give 3% of your token share to a bounty that's going to be a great success. You still have to market these to these people and still respect them. And my belief is that it's just a way of sharing your funds with the wider world and treat with respect all of those people on the bounty, in the bounty campaign. Now, social media is obviously crucial. It can drive traffic to your website, and ultimately, that is one of the metrics that you need to follow. We've talked about Telegram. Tips are, as soon as you have your ICO name, set up your chat group, set up your channel, and set up every fake derivative, because there are lots of fakers out there. ICO Bench was just saying that they have to broadcast the fact that they have an official channel, an official chat room, because not only are people faking individuals, they're faking entire channels. I know there are other speakers, and I'm very keen to listen to them, who are going to talk about fakery in the scene, but that is the backdrop. Institutional investors expect your ICO to have a strong following in Telegram, so you have to be there. And my suggestion would be, if you can time your ICO in such a way that you can really gear yourself up, make contact with people around the globe so that when your room is very, very busy, you can get support from different territories, and you're not going to be faffing around yourself as the founder of this enterprise dealing with Telegram queries. You really do need a good team, and you need them around the clock. Twitter is very important. It's a metric again, and it's also useful because it taps into the media who do use Twitter, and it's a great way for people to find you. Again, expect bots to tweet out fake information pretending to be your account. You have to have people on standby for that. And this is an area that is a drain, but it's to be expected now. Medium is also a really good place to communicate your ICO and messages, possibly with David Siegel's communication on Medium for Pillar and Hacker Noon. It's probably about as good as it gets. But again, it's a very good market to reach, and the number of followers that you have on Medium is a metric that the listing sites look for. Reddit is still very important, although Telegram has taken away a lot of traffic from Reddit, and a lot of Reddit people are directed to Telegram. Facebook or Fakebook, that's there simply because, again, the listings organisations do look to see if you have a Facebook page. It's slightly nonsensical because Facebook have said at one point that they'd ban advertising, but then they've changed their mind slightly. So just to say that with Facebook, it is worth having a Facebook page. I do not believe it's worth putting a massive effort there, and I would also say that it has no traction, virtually no traction whatsoever in this scene, but it's all part of the picture. Instagram is not used as a metric, but the Instagram community is more and more significant, and also it's used by media organisations. LinkedIn, one tip, if you want to really make the most of the opportunity, make sure that your profile is very, very up to date, and every single person on your team has a LinkedIn profile. That is crucial. It is used for verification purposes. Websites, I have yet to find an ICO website where it shows the advisors without LinkedIn profiles. What's interesting, even the most high-level people are prepared to be on LinkedIn. It's expected for verification, and being active there is very important. G+ is also good for optimizing your video. So these are the listing sites. These are just a few. There are many. Well, for example, it's just a good idea, any of your videos that you put out, you use your G+ account to share it with the community, because then that gets better picked up. And there are many, many of these listing sites. Be careful about anybody who approaches you on Telegram or via email or via LinkedIn. Just be very, very careful. This whole area is a minefield. The truth of the matter is that you can get good ratings without paying extra funds. However, you have to be incredibly well organised and have your ICO planned for 3-4 months ahead. If you want to get onto somewhere like ICO Bench within a reasonable space of time, then you'll have to pay a premium listing. Your premium listing on ICO Bench will not get you a better score, but it just opens the door for you. Now, all of the things I've discussed, the metrics link into the listing site. So it's almost a bit of reverse engineering that you need to do. They will look at typical categories. They'll look at the team, and they'll want to know that the technical expertise is there within the team to deliver, and previous ICO experience. They'll then look at the vision, and then the product. And basically, it is almost expected now that unless you have a minimal viable product at the point of announcing your ICO, that you're going to really struggle with getting traction. Expectations are so high now. Now, the very important area of influencer marketing and the video space. And this, again, is an area where I'd say, by all means, correspond and get to know some of the YouTube community people. They're hugely significant. But if you are running an ICO, do not attempt to think that it's easy to run an influencer campaign. The biggest difficulty is that there are so many fakes out there, you will waste a lot of time trying to find the right contact. Now, Daniel and Rugi run a business called CoinLocker. We've worked with them, and the great thing is that if you can get it right, you can have your external communication that's used for publicity purposes, and then you can share it and get that information out through the YouTube community. They do it brilliantly well. They've got fantastic rapport with the community. I believe that the YouTube community is absolutely fundamentally crucial to the success of ICOs. But again, we've seen something strange happen in the last year. And I think the strange thing that's happened is that people have got better at saying something sponsored. They're cleaner in their communication, and that's absolutely right. At the same time, some of the outlandish claims have disappeared. So everything's cleaned up and got a bit more professional. And interestingly, one has to really look at it from a campaign aspect. It's not good enough just to think, oh, I know Jay Snip, I'll give him a nudge and he'll put me, he'll mention me. It just isn't like that. You now need a solid campaign. You want to have a couple of dozen videos out within a 2-week period that are going to drive traffic to the site. This, by the way, is Crypto Rich, who's a great mate of Pillar and great mate of a lot of people in here, and he did an interview with various CEOs, including the very only David Siegel. So just to say, don't stop yourself from befriending these wonderful individuals, but don't begin to think that you can run an ICO and do it yourself. It'll absolutely drive you nuts. So, in terms of media communication, we're looking also at the mainstream communication, which is ostensibly writing articles, getting press releases, encouraging people to write about your ICO. Here are some examples for Pillar. And basically, the way you do it is you have to start with the content, and that's crucial, so there's the story. You then distribute it one-to-one to journalists, and also through platforms such as PR Newswire. You have to repeat that and get more information out, and basically at the third time of communicating to somebody, you will actually find that you will get some interest. There's massive competition here, and none of these articles are sponsored, by the way. And just to say, sponsored content online, there's some very good work out there, but it can be hugely expensive. Be very careful that you know what you're buying into. The good thing about sponsored content is that it's guaranteed, and there aren't that many guarantees in marketing PR for ICOs. This is Etch. Etch is a payroll platform. This is here to remind us that if you do good PR for your ICO, that will bring you dividends way beyond the ICO. When you want to speak to your users of the platforms that you're creating, then you will find that you have receptive ears. So Etch, as soon as their ICO was over, they were able to go and market their products and services directly to the payroll firms who had known and heard about them through the publicity. So this is another thing just to bear in mind. It's actually, there are benefits for the total business offering, not just the ICO. This is Digipulse. We helped these guys out in the last few weeks of their ICO. Fantastic group of people. This is here because they were slightly reluctant to target their own regional media in any way because they saw themselves as a global business. Well, let's face it, any business can be global if they want to be. But the important thing here is don't forget the passion that your local media, your regional media are going to have for your business. You're creating jobs. You are there at the forefront. If somebody's searching for an article about you, it doesn't matter if it's from a regional title, because actually, as soon as somebody sees it, if it's not behind a paywall, then actually it is instantly global. And this is about tapping into what the media want to know about. And these guys, I'm pleased to say, have been a fantastic success, and they're a wonderful young team and absolutely fantastic. This here is ODEM, which is an educational platform. Gus, I know, did the coding for this, very successful. And this particular ICO is addressing the live education scene. And basically, we help them with some influencer marketing. And they raised about 4.6 million, which is very respectable. And they're based out of Switzerland. MetaMe is going to be a live ICO shortly. They're about data sovereignty. We use the controversy around Facebook, Cambridge Analytica scandal to get the client to talk on BBC Radio 4, other sites, and also on Telegraph Online. Obviously, Zuckerberg, people were looking for expert comment on that matter. And then this is Jinbi, which is currently live, and Andre here is one of the co-founders. Very exciting, and Andre's here in this at this talk. So that just gives you a little bit of a glimpse as to the results and the output of PR. But essentially, PR is about putting out lots of different pieces of information that land and get coverage. Now, the next point is just to say newsletters to your target audience. Who in this room was on the Pillar newsletter during the ICO? Who was on the receiving list of the ICO? Now, I'm surprised. Good on you. I'm surprised there aren't more, but just to say, that's something that Pillar did brilliantly. What do I mean brilliantly? Partly driven by David and the rest of the team, Jack and Ralph. Basically, the newsletter was of huge significance, and one of the tactics was to drive people to sign up to the newsletter. Why? Because that's your database. Now, we all know about GDPR, but don't underestimate the power of your newsletter. And needless to say, this is one of the reasons why Pillar was so successful in reaching out to such a large number of people. Decide before your ICO is live who is responsible for getting the newsletters out, writing the content. Don't underestimate it. If your newsletter isn't well written and has mistakes in it, people will lose faith and trust in you. So it's really, really important. Events. Now, this is where we are. Just to say, you cannot underestimate the importance of events in terms of your ICO strategy. There are some ICOs that really focus on Telegram, social media, and events. If you go the events route and attend conferences, give talks, it is probably the most labor-intensive, expensive, possibly draining experience. I'd say you can't do it on your own. You need a team of people, 2 or 3 people who are going to pitch. But as a strategy, it's brilliant. Why? Because you can't underestimate the impact of the human communication. If you meet somebody face-to-face, you can take the measure of them. You really know, you can ask them the questions, and there are some fantastically successful ICOs who do this very well. They literally have a world tour. So if your ICO window is 3 months, look at all the events coming up. You might just say to yourselves, do you know what? We're just going to go out there and tell the world that this is where we're at and this is what we're doing. And it is a great way, again, of seeding your product to your target audience. But be careful about your energy levels, because ICOs are hard work, and they can be very painful. And it's not just for the clients, it's also for the people involved supporting them. Finally, metrics. There is absolutely no point in doing anything unless you can measure it. There are different ways of measuring it. Thanks, Mason, for this slide. Mason works with me, and Josh too. What I'm looking to point to is If you want your ICO marketing to be successful, work out what people judge, how people are going to measure you, and then reverse engineer it back so it looks good and it works well. Now, I have to say, of course, it's a given that your product is great. It's a given that you have the vision. It's a given that you're very good people and that you're not out there to rip anybody off. But the metrics are really, really important, and you do need to measure them throughout the campaign. If you find, for example, that you have a low number of people signing up for your newsletter, then that could mean that actually you really need to make more effort there, or perhaps your product is more geared towards institutional investors. The other tip is to say, look at where the traffic's coming from your site, and as soon as people sign up for your KYC, where are the signings coming from? And then you can gear your market. We all have these assumptions that most people, where your investors are going to come from. But don't forget to just look at what's under your nose. So I hope that was a bit of a rapid fire. I have got some handouts which I'd happily give to people or email to people, which is a checklist, which is really just almost a point of going through all of the detail and saying, have you done this? Have you done that? I hope that was helpful. And